It was past midnight on Vanguard Station, the kind of silence that came only after all the machinery stopped humming and the shift alarms went quiet. Ethan sat at his workbench, his fingers covered in grease. The young mechanic had been trying for hours to fix a broken power converter that refused to respond to any command. The dim light from the ceiling flickered occasionally, casting long shadows across his small quarters. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. He was tired. He was alone. And he wanted nothing more than to sleep for 2 days straight. He lived on the outer ring of the station, far from the main control decks. The air smelled faintly of metal and recycled oxygen. Outside the narrow window he could see the curve of a nearby moon, its silver surface bright against the darkness of space. It was peaceful, too peaceful almost. He'd been here for 3 years and sometimes he forgot what a sunrise looked like. Then came the sound. It was a soft hiss, like air escaping from a seal. At first, Ethan thought one of his pressure valves had cracked. He stood up, grabbing a spanner from the table. But the sound wasn't from his tools. It was from the door. The small digital screen beside the door flashed red for a second, then green. Someone had just overridden the lock. His chest tightened. That was impossible. Only authorized crew could access his room, and nobody had clearance at this hour. The door slid open with a metallic sigh. She stepped inside. For a moment, Ethan thought he was hallucinating. The figure standing in the doorway was tall, taller than him by almost a head. Her skin shimmered faintly like polished silver, and her hair, long and pale, glowed softly under the dim cabin lights. She wore what looked like fragments of alien armor, black plates scorched by plasma burns and smeared with dark violet fluid. Her eyes, a strange mix of silver and violet, searched the room like a predator looking for safety. Before he could say anything, she unlatched the chest piece of her armor and let it fall to the floor with a heavy clank. The sound echoed through the small cabin. More pieces followed, shoulder guards, wrist plates, metallic boots, all hitting the ground one after another. It wasn't a gesture of exposure. It was exhaustion. She was shedding weight, removing the only protection she had left. Then she whispered one word, her voice trembling and low. "Yours." The sound of it froze Ethan where he stood. He didn't even breathe. For a second he thought maybe she was threatening him, but her tone wasn't sharp, it was tired, almost desperate, and then she fell forward. Ethan lunged just in time to catch her before she hit the floor. Her body was strangely light but cold, like metal cooled in space. Her breathing was uneven, shallow. He could see a thin trail of glowing violet liquid seeping from her side. A wound, maybe a plasma burn. She was bleeding, but not like a human. The faint light from the wound pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. He carefully laid her down on his bunk and looked around the room. He had no idea what to do. She was an alien, no doubt about it. The pointed ears, the metallic skin, the faint hum coming from her veins, everything about her screamed non-human. He ran to his small storage box and pulled out his medical kit. He had basic supplies, nanogel, antiseptic, a few sealing pads. He wasn't sure if they'd work on alien biology, but he had to try. When he applied the gel to the wound, the alien woman flinched. Her eyes flickered open, bright, sharp, and full of confusion. She tried to sit up, but he pressed a hand gently against her shoulder. "Don't move," he said quietly. "You're hurt?" Her lips parted. The words that came out were in another language, soft, flowing sounds that made no sense to him. Her voice trembled, full of pain. She looked at him like someone waking from a nightmare. "I can't understand you," Ethan said. "Just stay still, okay?" He did what he could to stop the bleeding. The gel hissed slightly as it met her skin, sealing the glowing cut with a faint shimmer. He noticed strange, small tattoos along her collarbone, thin silver lines that glowed faintly when his hand passed near them. Maybe they were part of her biology, or maybe they were some kind of living tech. When he finished treating her, he stepped back and took a breath. She was breathing more steadily now. Her eyelids fluttered and she fell unconscious again. Ethan sat down on the floor, heart pounding. He didn't know what just happened. If anyone found out that he was hiding an alien, especially one from the Zyran Empire, he'd be arrested, maybe even spaced out the airlock. Humanity and the Zyrans had been at Cold War for years. There were rumors that the Zyrans were planning a large-scale invasion soon. He looked at the unconscious woman again. She didn't look like an invader. She looked like someone running away from something. He sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. "And why me?" He picked up one of the armor plates she had dropped. It was heavy, made of an unknown alloy. Etched on the side was a small insignia, a winged symbol surrounded by Xiran script. He'd seen that before in military briefings. That wasn't just any soldier's armor. It belonged to the Royal Guard Division. He froze. If she was part of the Royal Guard, then she was high-ranking. Maybe even close to the Xiran leadership. What was someone like her doing alone, wounded on a human outpost? The next few hours passed in silence. Ethan kept checking her pulse, her breathing. He repaired the airlock access so no one could get in again. Then he cleaned the armor pieces and stacked them quietly in the corner. Every so often he caught himself staring at her, wondering what she was dreaming. At one point her hand twitched, reaching toward him. He instinctively held it. It was colder than his, but the faint hum beneath her skin felt almost alive, like electricity pulsing under glass. He didn't know why, but he didn't let go. Morning on Vanguard Station came with the usual buzz of engines starting and crew reports echoing through the comm systems. Ethan should have been working his morning shift, but instead he was sitting beside a mysterious alien in his cabin, waiting for her to wake. Finally, she stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. For a moment, she looked lost, unsure of where she was. Then her gaze fell on him. "You're safe," Ethan said softly. "You're on Vanguard Station." "Do you understand me?" She blinked, her expression unreadable. Then she pressed a small device on her wrist. It flickered to life. A glowing hologram projecting symbols that reassembled into speech. A mechanical voice translated her words. "You are human?" she asked through the translator. "Yeah," he said, sitting straighter. "Ethan Cole, mechanic. You landed in my room last night, scared me half to death." Her eyes softened slightly. "You did not report me?" "No," he said. "I thought about it, but you didn't seem dangerous. You were hurt. I couldn't just hand you over." She looked at him for a long time, as if trying to measure the truth in his voice. Then she said quietly, "I am Lyra, former Captain Xiran Royal Guard. I'm a traitor to my kind." Ethan's breath caught. "A traitor?" Lyra nodded weakly. "They will come for me. I carry knowledge they cannot allow to exist," he frowned. "What kind of knowledge?" She hesitated. "A weapon. They plan to release it soon. A biological plague. It will destroy human colonies in days. I tried to stop them. I failed." Ethan felt his stomach twist. "You're saying the Xirans are planning to wipe out human settlements?" "Yes," she whispered. "And they believe I am dead. That is why I came here, to hide, to give warning." He sat back, trying to process it. This was way above his level. He was just a mechanic, not a soldier or a spy. But she was looking at him with quiet trust, as if he were her last hope. He looked down at her wrist, where faint lights pulsed from a small embedded chip. "Do you have proof, data?" "Anything I can show command." Lyra nodded weakly. "In my armor. Left chest plate. Data core inside." Ethan went to the pile of armor and searched carefully. After a few minutes, he found a small cube-shaped device embedded near the inner joint. He pulled it out. It glowed faintly blue, symbols scrolling across its surface. "This it?" he asked. She nodded. He placed it on his desk and connected it to his diagnostic console, the screen filled with alien script unreadable to him. "I can't decode this," he said. "But I might know someone who can." Lyra's gaze met his. "You risk everything for me." "Why?" He didn't have an answer. "Maybe because you asked for help," he said quietly. "And maybe because you said that word." She tilted her head. "Word? Yours?" he said. "When you entered my room." Lyra blinked, her translator humming softly. It means trust. In my language, it means I give my fate to you." He stared at her, feeling something stir in his chest. "Well," he said, trying to smile, "you've got a strange way of introducing yourself." For the first time, her lips curved slightly. "And you, human mechanic, have a strange way of saving enemies." "Guess we're both strange," he said. The soft hum of the station filled the silence between them. For a while, neither spoke. Ethan just sat there, watching her breathe more easily. The light from the stars outside fell across her face, and he realized that for all her alien features, she looked peaceful. Then his communicator beeped sharply. "Cole," came the voice of his supervisor. "Report to engineering immediately. We've detected unauthorized airlock access last night near your section. We're running scans for intruders. Ethan froze. His eyes darted toward Lyra. Her expression hardened. They are searching, she said. Yeah, he whispered, turning off the comm. And if they find you, she finished his sentence. You die. The day broke slowly over Vanguard Station, painting the walls of Ethan's small quarters in muted shades of gray and pale blue. Outside, the stars still shimmered faintly, but the station's hum was stronger now, signaling the start of another shift. Ethan had barely slept. He hadn't been able to sleep. Not since the alien Lyra had appeared in his room. She was somewhere inside the hidden crawlspace he had created, wrapped in blankets and breathing softly. He could hear her faint hum-like breathing as he moved around, preparing for what would be a dangerous day. He sat at his desk, the glowing blue cube of the Zyran data core before him. He hadn't dared to touch it yet. His fingers hovered over the interface. The inscriptions on it were strange, alien symbols that twisted and curved, glowing faintly as if alive. He had no way to read it. Not yet. Ethan rubbed his eyes and looked around the room. Everything seemed normal to anyone who entered, but he knew better. The floor panels hid the crawlspace where Lyra rested. The armor she had dropped sat quietly in the corner, now cleaned and stacked neatly. No one could guess that a royal Xerian guard was lying hidden behind that wall. He glanced at the ceiling, listening for footsteps. Every echo in the station made him jump. Security would soon realize something was wrong. If they found her, Lyra would be taken, and who knew what the Xerians would do if she fell into their hands again. Finally, he took a deep breath and activated the data core. The holographic display flared to life, filling the room with a blue glow. Alien symbols scrolled rapidly across the screen, forming patterns that seemed to move on their own. Ethan squinted. Nothing he tried could translate them. He had no idea what it all meant. Then he remembered something. The station's AI had basic translation routines for common alien languages. Maybe it could give him a clue. He connected the data core to the AI interface. The symbols began shifting again, and slowly, words in a language he could read started to appear. Siran. Weapon. Target. Human colonies. Ethan's heart pounded. He scanned the words again. They described a biological weapon, one designed to infect human colonies quickly and lethally. The text outlined delivery systems, activation codes, and targets. His mind reeled. This was bigger than anything he had imagined. He was just a mechanic, not a soldier or spy. Yet here he was, staring at the plans for a war that could wipe out thousands of human lives. He heard movement behind the wall. Lyra was awake, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim crawlspace. She stepped out slowly, cautious, and approached him. You accessed the core, she said softly, her voice almost musical. I had to, Ethan said. This is serious. You weren't lying. They really are planning something. Lyra nodded, her expression grave. I risked my life to bring this to you. If they succeed, humans will suffer, and the Zyrans will gain power beyond measure. You understand now why I came here? Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah, I get it. But what do we do now? I can't exactly go to the station commander and say, hey, there's an alien spy hiding in my room, and she has proof Zyrans want to kill humans. They'd lock me up immediately. Lyra studied him carefully. Then we hide. Until a solution is found, until the humans can prepare. Ethan ran his fingers through his hair. Hide. I'm a mechanic, Lyra. Hiding an alien isn't exactly in my job description. She smiled faintly the first time he'd seen it. Then you will learn quickly, human. Adaptation is part of survival. He laughed nervously. Yeah, well, I hope my survival skills are enough for two of us. For the next few hours, Ethan and Lyra worked in silence. He gathered supplies, extra blankets, food rations, a small medical kit, and whatever tools he could find. Lyra showed him how to use some of her own alien devices, compact tools designed for survival and repair, alien technology far beyond human understanding. Ethan tried to follow, fumbling with the strange interfaces, but she only shook her head with a faint smile. Soon you will understand, she said. By midday, the station's AI began issuing warnings. Unauthorized energy readings were detected near the outer ring. Ethan knew immediately what it meant. Someone was scanning for life signatures, possibly the Zerans, possibly station security. We need to move, he whispered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. The crawlspace will protect me from basic scans. But they may use advanced sensors. We cannot remain here long. He led her to the hidden crawlspace, helping her down carefully. The space was small, dark, and cramped. She didn't complain. She settled herself on the thin padding, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "They will come," she said quietly. "Sooner or later they will know I am here." Ethan nodded, sitting beside her. "Then we need a plan. If they come, I can't just let them take you. We'll have to fight. Or trick them." Lyra's eyes flickered. "Trickery may work. Fighting may not. I am strong, but alone I cannot survive their soldiers." He swallowed. "Then we'll have to do both. We'll need distractions, decoys, anything to protect you." Over the next 2 days, Ethan improvised. He hacked into the station's maintenance systems to reroute sensor readings. He programmed small drones to patrol hallways and emit false energy signatures. Every time a security officer passed, he held his breath, praying they didn't discover the hidden life form in his wall. Meanwhile, Lyra began to regain her strength. The wound on her side had healed somewhat with the nanogel he applied, and she moved more confidently. She taught him about Ziran combat techniques, not to fight the humans, but to anticipate enemy movements and avoid detection. Ethan learned quickly, his mechanical mind adapting to the logic of alien strategy. "I never thought I'd be doing this," he muttered one evening, checking the drone patrols. "Hiding an alien in my room, rerouting station security. I'm more like a spy than a mechanic now." Lyra's silver eyes glimmered in the dim light. "And yet you do it willingly. That is what makes you remarkable among humans. You possess qualities others would not dare use." He shrugged, embarrassed. "I'm just trying to survive and save you." She nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "And in saving me, you may save your people. Sometimes the smallest choices carry the greatest weight." The two of them sat in the small crawl space for hours, speaking quietly, exchanging stories. Ethan told her about his childhood on a mining colony, about the mechanical puzzles he loved to solve. Lyra spoke of her homeworld, the icy deserts of Ziran, the honor code of the Royal Guard, and the loyalty expected of her people. It was strange listening to an enemy recount their life, and yet he felt a connection he couldn't explain. Late in the night, Lyra finally said something that caught him off guard. "You are different from other humans I have met. Brave, clever, and compassionate. I trust you completely." Ethan blinked. "You already said that," he said, a little awkwardly. "Yes," she said softly, "but it is not the same. Before it was necessity, now it is choice." Her words hung in the air. He didn't know how to respond. For the first time, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Not just for the data she carried, but for the life of someone who trusted him completely. A few hours later, the station's emergency alert system screamed to life. Ethan jumped, his heart racing. The monitors in his cabin flashed red. Unauthorized energy signatures detected. Ziran scans. They were here. Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They have found me. We must move now." Ethan nodded, pulling her out of the crawl space. She moved with surprising speed for someone recovering from injuries. He guided her toward the maintenance tunnels he had discovered days before, a network of conduits and service passages that ran beneath the station. They were narrow, dark, and confusing, but he knew the layout from memory. The sound of footsteps and scanning drones echoed above them. Ethan's pulse raced. If they were caught, there would be no mercy. He glanced at Lyra, who seemed calm, her eyes glinting in the faint light of the conduits. She trusted him completely. That trust gave him strength. They moved quickly, silently. The drones passed nearby, their sensors sweeping for anomalies. Ethan held his breath as one passed almost directly above them. Lyra whispered softly, a strange hum that vibrated through the metal walls. The drone's sensors seemed to falter, the energy signature of her body distorted. "It is working," she said quietly. "Your tricks are clever." Ethan smiled faintly, even as his heart pounded. "Just don't tell anyone I'm this smart," he whispered. Hours passed in the tunnels. By the time they emerged near a service airlock on the far side of the station, both were exhausted. Ethan had never been so grateful for narrow corridors and darkness. They were safe for now. Lyra leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "You have done well, human, but we cannot remain here. The Zirans will continue searching, and the humans may not understand, I know," he said. "We'll need a plan. We'll need allies." She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly. "Perhaps there is one." Ethan tilted his head. "One what?" Someone who can decode the data core. Someone who can help your people prepare for what is coming. And, perhaps, help us survive this. Ethan nodded slowly. The days ahead would be dangerous. They would need cunning, courage, and perhaps luck. But for the first time since she had appeared in his room, dropping everything and whispering yours, he felt a sense of purpose. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was part of something bigger, something that could change the fate of two species. And as he watched Lyra, silver and glowing, resting against, the station's corridors felt alive in a way Ethan had never noticed before. Every hum of the engines, every hiss of the airlocks, every distant clang of machinery seemed louder now. He walked cautiously, leading Lyra through the narrow maintenance tunnels. Above them, the station was on high alert. Unauthorized energy signatures had been detected again, and this time the warning lights were flashing red across every deck. Ethan knew the station security would search every room, every corner, every panel. Lyra followed silently, her movements precise and deliberate. Even wounded, she moved like a predator, her alien instincts evident in every step. Her silver skin glimmered faintly in the dim light of the tunnels, making her seem otherworldly, almost like a living ghost. "Are we going to be okay?" Ethan asked, his voice low. He tried to keep it calm, but his pulse raced. Lyra glanced at him. "We will survive if we remain clever. But this station is not safe for either of us. Soon we must leave." Ethan swallowed. Leaving the station meant leaving behind the only place he had called home. But he knew she was right. If the Xyrans found her, the station would become a death trap, and nothing he could do would stop them. As they moved deeper into the tunnels, Ethan remembered the small drones he had set up the day before. They emitted false energy signatures, creating distractions for the sensors sweeping the corridors above. He activated them now, and the tiny machines hummed softly as they flew through the ducts, projecting false readings. Lyra nodded approvingly. "You think like a strategist, human. That will help us." They crept through the maze-like passages, following the maintenance schematics Ethan had memorized. Every junction brought a new challenge. Locked doors, narrow air shafts, and sudden drops in temperature that made Ethan shiver. Lyra, however, seemed unaffected. She moved with grace, her silver skin reflecting the faint blue glow of the emergency lights. Hours passed as they navigated the tunnels. The distant sound of alarms echoed through the station, growing louder with each passing minute. Ethan's chest ached with fatigue, but he couldn't slow down. Lyra's life depended on him. Finally, they reached a hidden service airlock on the far side of the station. Ethan quickly accessed the control panel and opened the hatch. The outside led to a small abandoned storage section that hadn't been used in years. It was dusty, filled with old crates and broken equipment, but it was perfect for hiding. Lyra stepped inside, her eyes scanning the area. "This will suffice for now," she said quietly. "But we cannot remain here long. The Xyrans are persistent. They will search every inch of this station until they find me." Ethan nodded. "Then we stay hidden and we plan our next move. We need allies, people who can help us decode the data core and prepare for what's coming." Lyra tilted her head. "There is one. Someone you will trust. Perhaps not immediately, but eventually." Ethan frowned. "Who?" She shook her head. "I cannot reveal that yet. The timing is not right." They settled in the storage area, taking stock of their supplies. Ethan had brought food rations, water, and a few medical kits. Lyra examined them carefully, her alien eyes sharp and precise. "You have done well," she said. "But we will need more if we are to survive for long." Ethan nodded. "I can scavenge supplies from the station, but we have to be careful. Security will be everywhere." She studied him for a long moment. "You are brave. Perhaps foolishly so. But that is why I trust you." The hours passed slowly. Outside, the station's alarm systems continued to blare, but inside the storage area, a fragile calm settled between them. Ethan watched Lyra, noticing the subtle movements of her breathing, the faint glow of her skin, and the way she seemed to radiate quiet strength even in her vulnerable state. Finally, she spoke. "Ethan, you do not fully understand the danger. The Xyrans will not stop until I am returned. And even then, the weapon they plan to unleash will not wait for anyone. Time is critical." He nodded. "I know. That's why we have to move fast. But first, I need to understand the data core. I need to know what we're dealing with." Lyra stepped closer, her silver fingers hovering over the glowing blue cube. The data is encoded in Zyran language, advanced, layered, and encrypted. You cannot decipher it alone. You will need my assistance or the guidance of someone trained in such matters. Ethan sighed. I guess that means I need to trust you completely. She nodded. You already have. That is why I am here, alive with you. They worked together, analyzing the data core. Lyra guided his hands over the symbols, explaining the logic behind the encryption. Her voice was soft but firm, full of authority tempered with quiet patience. Ethan listened intently, learning to recognize patterns in the alien script, understanding how the Zyrans structured their codes. Hours passed. The tension in the air was thick, but slowly, Ethan began to make sense of the data. He discovered locations, time frames, and patterns of the planned attacks. The scale of the Zyran operation was staggering, and the urgency of their mission pressed down on him like a heavy weight. Suddenly, a loud alarm echoed through the storage area. Ethan jumped, heart racing. The station's sensors had detected movement, security patrols approaching their hiding place. Lyra's eyes narrowed. They are close. We must leave now. Ethan grabbed the data core, securing it in a protective case he had made earlier. Lyra moved beside him, her movements fluid and precise. Together, they slipped into the maintenance tunnels, retracing their path through the maze-like passages. The sound of boots and scanning devices grew louder behind them. Ethan's pulse quickened. He could hear the faint hum of the drones he had set up earlier, projecting false energy signatures to confuse the patrols. They reached a junction where the tunnel split into 3 directions. Ethan paused, trying to decide the best route. Lyra placed a hand on his arm, steadying him. This way, she whispered, pointing to the narrowest passage. It will be more difficult to navigate, but it will keep us hidden. Ethan nodded, trusting her instincts. They moved carefully, squeezing through the tight corridor. The walls scraped against their shoulders and the air grew colder, but it was safer. As they emerged into a larger service area, Ethan spotted a maintenance hatch leading to an old escape pod bay. He knew it hadn't been used in years, but it was their best chance. Do you think it still works? He asked. Lyra studied the hatch. If the systems have power, yes. It is worth the risk. Ethan opened the hatch and peered inside. The pods were dusty, covered in debris, but structurally intact. He checked the controls, testing the systems. Some were functional, though he would need to repair one to get it operational. We'll use this, he said. It may be our only chance to escape if things get worse. Lyra nodded, her eyes glinting with determination. Good, but we cannot rely on luck alone. We must plan, anticipate, and act decisively. Over the next few hours, they worked together to repair the pod. Ethan's mechanical skills, combined with Lyra's knowledge of advanced Zyran technology, allowed them to bring one pod online. The controls responded smoothly, the engines powered up, and the navigation system displayed the station's coordinates. Finally, as they rested for a moment, Ethan looked at Lyra. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come to me. I probably would have ignored the alarm, gone to sleep, and... Who knows? Lyra's silver eyes softened. And yet here you are, alive, ready, willing to act when necessary. That is why I trust you. You are remarkable human. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. He had never been praised like this before. Not by a human, and certainly not by an alien warrior. Suddenly, the sound of the station's alarm grew louder. Ethan's stomach sank. Security patrols had detected anomalies in the maintenance area. The drone's energy signatures were no longer enough to fool the sensors. They are coming, Lyra said, her voice calm but urgent. We must move to the pod immediately. Ethan grabbed the protective case with the data core. Lyra followed closely, her movements precise and graceful. Together, they ran through the maintenance tunnels, avoiding the security patrols as best they could. The sound of footsteps and scanning devices grew louder behind them. Ethan's heart raced, but he didn't falter. He could feel Lyra's presence beside him, guiding him, steadying him. Finally, they reached the pod bay. Ethan quickly opened the hatch and guided Lyra inside. She moved with practiced ease, taking her seat and securing the harness. Ethan followed, placing the data core in a secure compartment beside him. He activated the pod systems. The engines roared to life and the navigation controls locked onto a safe trajectory away from the station. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. Lyra's eyes met his. We are not safe yet, she said. But we have survived this encounter. That is what matters. Ethan nodded. And we'll survive the next one too. Together. As the pod detached from the station and drifted into the vast expanse of space, Ethan felt a sense of determination he had never known before. The Ziranes would come. The war was still looming, but for now he and Lyra had survived, and that was enough. Outside the pod, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to their flight. Inside, a human and an alien, enemies by birth but allies by choice, prepared for the challenges ahead. The journey was far from over, but together they had taken the first step toward survival, trust, and perhaps something more. The pod drifted silently through the black void of space, stars streaking past like thin threads of silver light. Inside, Ethan sat tense, his hands gripping the control panel. Beside him, Lyra remained calm, her silver skin glowing faintly in the dim blue light of the pod. The hum of the engines was soothing, but he knew that safety was only temporary. The Ziranes would not let her escape so easily. "Are we being tracked?" Ethan asked quietly, not taking his eyes off the monitors. Lyra scanned the readouts with her glowing violet eyes. "The Ziranes are persistent. They will continue to trace my signature through the station's residual energy. We may have a short window before they detect our trajectory." Ethan swallowed hard. "How short?" She hesitated, then said, "Minutes. Possibly less." Panic rose in his chest. "Minutes? That's not a lot of time." Lyra's expression softened. "Do not panic. You are capable. We must act decisively and trust our abilities." Ethan nodded. He took a deep breath, steadying his hands. "Okay, let's get out of here." He engaged the pod's thrusters, sending them away from the station at maximum safe speed. The small vessel shuddered as it broke free of the station's gravity and acceleration fields. Ethan kept his focus, navigating through debris fields and abandoned satellite arrays, carefully avoiding anything that could damage the pod. Lyra leaned forward slightly, her fingers brushing the control panel. "We must hide in the asteroid belt nearby. The Ziranes will have difficulty scanning through dense fields. It will buy us time." Ethan nodded and adjusted their course toward the nearest belt. The pod's engines roared as they accelerated, small bursts keeping them on a precise path. Outside the viewports, massive rocks drifted lazily in the void, their surfaces pocked with craters and frozen ice. "Do you trust me?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. Lyra's silver eyes met his. "I trust you because you have proven yourself. You have protected me when others would not. You have acted when it was necessary. That is why I follow your lead." Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. The danger was real, but her words gave him strength. "Good, because we're just getting started." As they entered the asteroid belt, the pod's sensors registered hundreds of objects in close proximity. Ethan navigated carefully, dodging rocks and ice fragments, the pod's hull creaking slightly under the stress. Lyra assisted, pointing out obstacles and calculating safe trajectories. Hours passed, and they finally reached a secluded area deep within the belt. Ethan shut down the main engines and maneuvered the pod into a small hollow between two massive asteroids. They were hidden from direct line of sight, and the dense field would make scanning nearly impossible. They settled in, catching their breath. Ethan leaned back in his seat, rubbing his temples. "I didn't think I'd be hiding in an asteroid field from aliens today," he muttered. Lyra smiled faintly. "Life is unpredictable, human. Adaptation is necessary." Ethan laughed softly, shaking his head. "You make it sound like a lesson, but it's just terrifying." She tilted her head. "Fear is natural. Control it and it can be used to sharpen your senses." They remained in the hollow, using the pod's sensors sparingly. Ethan accessed the data core again, determined to make sense of the Zirane plans. Lyra guided him through the alien encryption, teaching him how to identify patterns, understand their symbols, and interpret the hidden codes. Hours turned into days as they worked together. Ethan's skills grew rapidly under Lyra's guidance. He learned to read the flow of Zirane logic, predict their calculations, and understand the underlying strategies. The data core revealed targets across multiple colonies, schedules of shipments, and even details of the weapons components. "This is worse than I imagined," Ethan said one night. "If the Ziranes succeed, entire colonies could be wiped out in hours. Millions of lives." Lyra placed a hand on his arm. "That is why we must act. But we cannot rush blindly. Every move must be calculated, every risk measured. Otherwise, we will fail before we even begin." Ethan nodded. "Then we plan carefully. We gather allies, and we strike at the right moment." Lyra studied him for a long moment. You are growing into a leader, human. That is unusual for your species. Most would flee, hide, or surrender. You adapt. You rise to the challenge. Ethan felt a surge of pride mixed with responsibility. I can't do it alone. But with you, maybe we have a chance. Lyra's eyes softened. Together we can survive. Together we can change the outcome. Their time in the asteroid field was not without danger. Small Xeran scouting ships occasionally passed near their location. Ethan and Lyra monitored the signals, adjusting their position to avoid detection. Each close encounter left Ethan tense, his mind racing with calculations and contingency plans. One night, as they rested, Lyra spoke quietly. Ethan, you will need allies beyond this station. Humans with skills, courage, and intelligence. They will aid us in decoding the remaining data, preparing defenses, and ultimately confronting the threat. Ethan nodded. I know, but finding them will be difficult. Most will think I'm crazy. Most will not believe an alien is helping humanity. She placed her hand over his. Then you must choose carefully. Trust those who show integrity, intelligence, and bravery. Do not allow fear to dictate your decisions. Ethan looked at her, feeling the weight of the task ahead. The Xyrans were relentless, the threat imminent, and time was short. Yet he also felt a sense of determination he had never known before. For the first time in his life, he realized that he was part of something far greater than himself. Days passed, and Ethan began devising a plan. They would leave the asteroid field under cover of a meteor storm, using the natural chaos to mask their departure. They would travel to a nearby human colony, one that had been flagged as a potential ally. There, they would find skilled individuals capable of decoding the rest of the Xyran data and preparing defenses. Lyra assisted, providing strategies, calculating risks, and teaching Ethan how to anticipate Xyran movements. Together, they mapped a route that would minimize exposure and maximize their chances of survival. The night before their departure, Ethan sat with Lyra in the pod. Tomorrow everything changes, he said quietly. Lyra nodded. Yes, and you must be prepared. Once we leave the asteroid field, there will be no more hiding. The Xyrans will pursue relentlessly. Every decision you make will determine not only our survival, but the fate of many others. Ethan took a deep breath. I understand, and I'm ready. She studied him for a long moment. You are stronger than you know, human. I am fortunate to have found you. Ethan felt a strange warmth in his chest. I'm just trying to do the right thing. That's all? Lyra's eyes glimmered. And that is enough. The next morning, they prepared the pod for departure. Ethan recalibrated the engines, adjusted the navigation system, and secured the data core. Lyra checked the external sensors, ensuring the asteroid field would provide sufficient cover. As they waited for the meteor storm, Ethan felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. The Xyrans were out there watching, waiting, calculating, yet he also felt hope. With Lyra at his side, guidance from the data core, and a carefully laid plan, they had a chance. A slim chance, but a chance nonetheless. The first meteors began to streak past, small fragments glowing as they burned through the station's outer atmosphere. Ethan engaged the pod's engines, sending them careening through the chaos. Rocks and ice fragments flew past, narrowly missing the hull. Lyra monitored the trajectory, adjusting their path with precision. For a while it seemed as though they might escape unnoticed. The natural chaos of the storm masked their energy signature, and Ethan navigated with skill and focus. But then sensors picked up a Xyran patrol ship entering the area. They have found us, Lyra said calmly. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Ethan's hands shook slightly as he adjusted the pod's engines. The patrol ship fired energy pulses, which Ethan dodged by weaving between meteors. Lyra guided him with precise instructions, her voice calm and commanding. Hours passed in a tense game of pursuit. The Xyran ship was fast, relentless, but Ethan and Lyra used every trick they had learned. False energy signatures, careful maneuvers, and exploiting the chaotic meteor field. Finally, as they approached the outer edge of the storm, Ethan found a clear path. He engaged full thrust, propelling the pod away from the belt and toward the nearby human colony. Lyra monitored the sensors, ensuring they were not being tracked. For the first time in days, Ethan allowed himself to relax slightly. They had survived. They were still free, but he knew this was only the beginning. The Xyrans would not stop, and the threat of their weapon loomed ever closer. Lyra placed a hand on his arm. We have survived this encounter, but the true challenge lies ahead. You must be ready, human, Ethan nodded. I am ready. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The stars stretched endlessly outside the pod. Inside, a human and an alien, enemies by chance but allies by choice, prepared to enter a world far from safety, a world that held the promise of allies, knowledge, and the next stage of their struggle. The journey was far from over, and the danger was growing with every passing moment. But together they had taken the first step toward survival, trust, and the hope that they could change the fate of two species. The human colony emerged on the pod's sensors like a distant cluster of lights, small but active. Ethan guided the pod carefully through the atmosphere, weaving past the scattered moons and rocky outcroppings that orbited the planet. Lyra watched silently beside him, her silver skin glowing faintly as the pod descended toward the surface. This colony, it's isolated, Ethan said. They're not connected to the main human network. That's why I thought it would be a good place to hide, and to gather allies. Lyra nodded. Isolation has advantages. Fewer eyes to notice us, but also fewer people to aid us. We must choose wisely. As they entered the colony's atmosphere, the pod sensors detected life and activity. Humans moved about the buildings, unaware of the approaching danger. Ethan piloted the pod to a secluded landing pad, a small clearing surrounded by tall rock formations. He shut down the engines and waited, holding his breath. Lyra's eyes scanned the colony. We must approach carefully. Too much attention could bring the Xyrans here before we are ready. Ethan opened the pod's hatch, letting them out into the crisp air. The colony's ground was rocky and uneven, with patches of sparse vegetation. He led Lyra along a narrow path toward the main settlement. A figure emerged from one of the buildings, a young engineer named Mara. She had sharp eyes and a cautious demeanor. Ethan had known her from before. She was skilled with machinery and data systems. Mara, Ethan whispered, waving her over. We need help now. Mara approached cautiously. She glanced at Lyra, startled by her silver glow and alien features. What is that? This is Lyra, Ethan said quickly. She's not your enemy, but we need to move fast. The Xyrians are hunting her, and they plan to attack human colonies. Mara's eyes widened. You're serious? This is insane. I know, Ethan said, gripping her arm, but if we don't act, thousands of lives will be lost. We need your skills. Can you help us? Mara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. I don't fully understand, but yes, I'll help. Inside a small workshop, Ethan, Lyra, and Mara worked quickly. Ethan explained the data core and what they had learned from it. Lyra guided Mara through the alien encryption, teaching her how to recognize patterns and interpret Xyran codes. Together, they began decoding the plans, identifying the targets, the weapons components, and the weak points in the Xyran strategy. Hours turned into a long night of work. The colony's quiet was broken only by the hum of machines and the occasional muttered calculation. Ethan felt exhausted but determined. With Lyra and Mara, they were making progress faster than he had ever imagined possible. Finally, Mara let out a breath. I think I've got it. We can neutralize the weapon, but we'll need more people, more resources, and we'll need to act fast. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly. We do not have much time. The Xyrans will arrive soon. Ethan nodded. Then we prepare. We gather the colonists, set up defenses, and confront them if necessary. We have the advantage of knowledge now. They do not know we have decoded their plans. The colony's people were hesitant at first. Many had never seen an alien up close, and fear ran through their ranks. But Ethan spoke with confidence, explaining the threat, the data, and the strategy. Slowly they rallied. Engineers, pilots, and soldiers joined their effort. Tools were gathered, defenses constructed, and plans rehearsed. Lyra trained the colonists in tactics and evasive maneuvers, demonstrating how to exploit weaknesses in the Xyran ships and their energy systems. Ethan worked tirelessly, assisting with machinery, piloting drills, and communication setups. Mara coordinated the data core analysis, guiding them to anticipate the enemy's next moves. Days passed. The colony transformed into a hub of preparation and strategy. Ethan and Lyra grew closer through the shared work, their trust and reliance on one another deepening. He marveled at her knowledge and strength, and she admired his courage and determination. Then the sensors detected them. A fleet of Xyran ships, moving faster than expected, closing on the colony. Ethan felt a chill, but he stood firm. "This is it," he said. "Everyone take your positions. Stick to the plan. We can do this." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "They are numerous, but we have the advantage of preparation and knowledge. Use it wisely." The Zyran fleet emerged from hyperspace, massive ships cutting through the atmosphere, weapons gleaming. Energy pulses fired at the colony's outskirts, but the colonists had prepared defenses, shields, decoy drones, and traps. The initial salvo was deflected, the shockwave rolling harmlessly over the protective barriers. Ethan and Lyra moved to the command center, coordinating the colony's response. Mara relayed data from the decoded plans, pointing out weak points and likely attack patterns. Together, they guided the defense, directing energy pulses, evacuation routes, and countermeasures. The Zyrans responded with precision, but Ethan had anticipated their strategy. Using the asteroid-like terrain of the colony, they created ambush points and concealment zones. Small craft and automated drones harassed the enemy fleet, disrupting their formation. Lyra moved through the battlefield with agility, coordinating units and engaging enemy scouts with swift, precise strikes. Ethan piloted a small attack ship, darting through the enemy ranks, targeting weak points Mara had identified. Together, they became a force the Zyrans hadn't expected, a combination of human ingenuity and alien skill. Hours passed in intense battle. Energy pulses, explosions, and maneuvers filled the skies. The Zyrans were formidable, but the colony's defenses, guided by Ethan and Lyra, held strong. Finally, they executed the final stage of their plan. Using a combination of decoy drones, energy pulses, and precise targeting, they disabled the core of the Zyran weapon. The massive fleet faltered, confusion spreading among their ranks. Ethan and Lyra led a daring strike against the flagship, using a narrow canyon as cover to launch a direct attack. The flagship's energy shields faltered under coordinated strikes. Lyra guided the pods and ships through weak points, while Ethan delivered a final precision attack that disabled the vessel completely. The remaining Zyran ships, seeing their command ship fall, retreated into space, their assault broken. The colony erupted in celebration. Humans cheered, hugged, and rejoiced, grateful for their survival. Ethan felt a mix of relief and exhaustion, his body trembling from the adrenaline. Lyra stood beside him, her silver skin glowing softly in the evening light, her eyes reflecting pride and respect. "You did well, human," she said. "You led them, you protected us, and you changed the outcome. Few would have succeeded where you did." Ethan smiled, finally allowing himself to relax. "We did it together, Lyra. You guided me, taught me, and trusted me. I couldn't have done it without you." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "And I could not have done it without you. Trust and cooperation are powerful. You proved that today." Mara approached, smiling. "I still can't believe it. We actually won. Against the Zyrans. And all thanks to you two." Ethan laughed softly. "No, thanks to all of us. Every person here played a part." Lyra studied the horizon, her eyes thoughtful. "The Zyrans may return, but today we have shown that unity, courage, and intelligence can overcome even the most formidable foes. That is hope." Ethan nodded, looking at the colony, the people, and Lyra beside him. For the first time since this journey began, he felt a sense of peace. The immediate danger was over, the weapon neutralized, and the colony safe. They had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. Days later, Ethan, Lyra, and Mara began planning further defenses, preparing the colony for potential future threats, and strengthening communication with other human outposts. Lyra shared more about her people, their technology and strategies, helping the humans grow stronger. Ethan, once just a mechanic, had become a leader, strategist, and protector. He had faced fear, danger, and uncertainty, and emerged stronger. His bond with Lyra had grown into mutual respect, trust, and an unspoken understanding that together they could face anything. The stars continued their silent drift above, endless and vast. Inside the colony, humans and an alien warrior celebrated survival, unity, and hope. The future was uncertain. The Zyrans remained a threat, but for now, victory had been won through courage, intelligence, and the unbreakable trust between two beings from entirely different worlds. And as Ethan looked at Lyra, standing tall, proud, and alive beside him, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The battle had ended. The war was not over, but the future had been changed. Humanity had survived another day, and a human and an alien had forged a bond that no enemy could break.